Could I ask you to take a few seconds to consider, in the worst moment of your life, what would you need? In 2017, my life changed forever. Just 6 months after having my second child, Ella, I found myself sitting in a small, lifeless clinical room, facing a surgeon and his registrar. A rare neuroendocrine tumour had been discovered in my stomach that was not the type or grade that could remain. Half of my stomach was to be removed. The first thing that entered my mind was this was not part of my plan. I had wanted to return from maternity leave in a week's time. I guess on reflection, this is what is known as denial. My first question was, when is this going to be? It wasn't until the response came as next Friday that I realised this wasn't the small procedure I'd expected it to be. A week later, I awoke in recovery to a surgeon standing at the side of my bed. "I'm so sorry, Jen," he said. "We've had to remove all of your stomach. It was open surgery and not keyhole." Wow, I wasn't prepared for that. All of my stomach, a total gastrectomy. That was a different ball game. My recovery started well, and as per my character, I was ready to be a warrior and not a worrier, and face the challenges that this operation would throw my way. I'm not really one to make a fuss. But a total gastrectomy was rare, and my tumour even rarer. Did you know it's possible to live without a stomach? I didn't, but I do now. A total gastrectomy can lead to 25% weight loss in the average patient. As a fairly petite woman with an average pre-op weight of 8 stone, my family watched me waste away to 5.5. Retaining weight was going to be difficult for me, as without a stomach, I'm limited on the amount and type of food I can intake. I can only describe my diet at the time as a slushy, mushy baby food one. It was going to be a long road to recovery, but I began the journey and I was soon discharged. It was 3 weeks later that the real drama began. My esophagus restricted, meaning I couldn't swallow, but my amazing specialist nurse booked me in for a procedure to dilate the pathway the very next day. It worked and I was discharged once more. Back home, I managed to eat and this time actually swallow. Small wins. The next day, though, I awoke to pain in the back of my chest, and as the day progressed, it became excruciating. Now, I didn't mention this earlier, but I actually gave birth to my second child, Ella, on a multi-storey car park with no pain relief and I hardly batted an eyelid. So when I say excruciating, I mean the worst pain I'd experienced to that date. It may have been denial making a reappearance, and as I say, I'm not one to make a fuss, so I did my best to crack on with the roast I was cooking for the family. My husband got home to find me lying on the floor, hardly moving. I was admitted to hospital via ambulance. It was a bank holiday weekend, and although that shouldn't have made the difference, I believe it probably did. That weekend was one of the darkest and scariest weekends of my life. I was wheeled into a bay where I lay surrounded by what felt like chaos. Busy was an understatement. Alarms, buzzers, doors banging, phones ringing. 1,000 voices talking, but none of them to me. I had no idea what was happening, what was going on. Last time I had known why. I had a plan, I had control, but now I felt so unwell, so unsafe. I was transferred to a ward feeling unwell, vulnerable and unsafe. It's hard to forget this time in my life. My family was scared and worried. They had no idea what was happening, what was going on, who was in charge, or the names of anybody to speak to. My husband later told me that the staff he had seen were just rushed off their feet, answering the alarms and the phones. He had tried to tell them that my diet was different due to my operation, and that last time I was in hospital, I'd ordered food off a special menu. I lay there unable to speak, but I heard him say these words again and again, and felt afraid that there didn't seem to be anybody here who could help. Finally, he found somebody who seemed to understand what he was referring to. They came back clutching a poor appetite menu. Had lots of things to eat on that menu. Sausage bombs, bacon butties. It wasn't that I had no appetite. I have no stomach and I couldn't eat those type of things. Next, the nurse came in to give medicines. They were alone, fending off all the queries from the patients and questions from colleagues. From my experience post-op, it had been noted that I have an opiate allergy. I'm allergic to the medicines that they give for pain relief, tramadol, morphine. I lay there and I felt so scared. She was so busy. How could she focus? How could she concentrate with all these interruptions? My condition deteriorated. I felt unwell, vulnerable, and unsafe. I don't recall it, but I now know I had left a voice message of my nutritionist's number, simply saying, "It's Jen, please help me." I honestly believed I was going to die that weekend. And towards the end, I told my mum I wanted to die. That weekend was the worst weekend of my life. Until the surgeon walked into the ward. It was like a white knight had ridden in. He walked over to my bed and he sat beside me and he held my hand and he said, "Jen, I'm going to look after you now." The sense of overwhelming relief is something I will never be able to explain. In that moment, everything changed. I went from feeling as though I would die to feeling hopeful. I was saved. I was transferred to another ward. What made that ward different? It was the same hospital after all. On that ward, I felt safe. On that ward, I knew the names of all the staff members. If I mentioned something to one staff member, the next to see me had been informed. They knew about me. I didn't have to repeat myself. I felt like I was heard. On this ward, the nurse that came to give medicines wore a jacket identifying them as the medicines nurse. And they always seemed to be accompanied by another staff member who would answer the queries and the questions. It gave the nurse time. It gave the nurse space to do their job. It made me feel safe. On this ward, Kate, a healthcare assistant, made me feel safe. I was trying my best to fluff up the standard issue NHS flat as a pancake pillows, and she noticed, and she went to find me a pillow. She cared. She took time to make me feel more comfortable. This made me feel more safe. Ian, a nurse on the ward, he'd noticed I hadn't been drinking. I wasn't hydrated, but I didn't want to drink that water. I felt a bit sick, and if I'm honest, I don't really like water. Ian noticed, and outside the designated tea trolley time, he made me a drink. He made me a cup of tea. He took time. He probably had many other priorities, but he took time to make me feel like I mattered. He cared. This made me feel safe. Since the bank holiday weekend, I hadn't wanted to see my girls. I thought that they would be better off without me. I didn't want them to come into the ward, and if I'm honest, I didn't want them to see me afraid. My surgeon, Mr. Gilroy-Cheetham, arranged for them to come and visit me in a room outside the ward. Seeing them stood in front of me brought the reality back to me. I wasn't able to distance myself from them with them stood in front of me. They gave me my hope. They gave me a purpose. They gave me something to live for. If only seeing how badly my husband had done Grace's hair I knew that they needed me and that I needed to live for them. These small things made such a difference in making me feel more supported, less vulnerable and safe. These small things made such a big difference. As I sat there observing, I began to realise that the staff are on a stage, every day performing to every patient in the ward. You see, as patients, we've nothing else to do but to sit and to watch. And as when you watch a show, you live, feel and breathe every emotion of the people on the stage. I realised the staff on that first ward, they didn't seem so safe. And if they weren't safe, how were they meant to make me feel safe? You see, on the first ward, they were put out on a stage without a script, several actors down. The pressure of that bank holiday weekend, contending with the heckles of the audience, made them battle to perform to the best of their ability. As I lay there, I tried to put myself in their shoes. I couldn't begin to fathom the amount of pressure that they must have been under with people's lives in their hands. Their mental well-being had not been protected, and that had rubbed off on me. Whereas on the second ward, they'd been given time to learn their script. There were enough of them to know each other's roles as well as their own. It felt like they had rehearsed together. They could understudy for each other and certainly communicate with each other. On this ward, as I sat as a member of that audience, I felt reassured by the performance that they instilled in me. The people in the NHS are good people. They take pride in knowing that they are there to support patients, carers and relatives. They are kind people. They want to save lives, but we are pushing them beyond their limits with relentless demand. It is not safe for them, and it isn't safe for the patients that they serve. In the worst moment of my life, when I told my mum I wanted to die, what I needed was to feel safe. I believe when somebody made me feel safe, everything changed. I can't explain it, but it taught me the importance of protecting the mental well-being of our healthcare professionals with the right systems, processes and culture, so that they can go out to give their best performance. So when patients like me are experiencing the worst moment in our lives, they can make us feel safe. Thank you.